The Shadowfang cruised through the void between systems, its hull scarred from 1,000 hunts. Aboard the Krath warship, Dr. Lyra Venn sat cross-legged in her assigned quarters, a storage compartment hastily converted after her rescue from the derelict research station. The Krath had found her half-starved, alone, the sole survivor of a pirate raid that left her colleagues dead and her supplies depleted. Captain Thrawn had been dubious about harboring a human. His kind stood 8 feet tall, their bodies wrapped in chitinous armor, their jaws capable of crushing bone. Humans were small, soft, ridiculously fragile. The galaxy knew them as persistence hunters from a death world, yes, but what good was endurance on a starship? Still, the human had knowledge. Medical knowledge. And when 3 of his warriors fell ill with void rot during their last raid, it was Dr. Venn who synthesized a cure from the ship's limited supplies. Thrawn allowed her to stay. The crew kept their distance, except for the cubs. Krath young were raised communally aboard military vessels, learning the ways of war from birth. Cub Rak, barely into his 3rd molt, had been fascinated by the human since she arrived. Unlike his clutchmates who hissed and postured when she passed, Rak watched her with curious golden eyes. He noticed things others didn't, like how Dr. Venn always visited the galley at dawn cycle. Her movements sluggish until she consumed the bitter black liquid she called coffee. How she worked through mealtimes in the medical bay, often forgetting to eat. How she grew pale and unsteady when too many hours passed without sustenance. Humans were endurance hunters, Rak had learned from the ship's database. But that endurance required fuel. Constant fuel. Their metabolisms burned hot and fast, so unlike the Krath, who could feast once every 5 cycles and remain battle-ready. On the morning it happened, Rak noticed Dr. Venn hadn't come to the galley. The breakfast period passed. Mid-cycle arrived. He found her in the medical bay, staring at a holographic display of human cellular structures, her hands trembling slightly as she made notes. Dr. Venn, his translator, rendered his chittering speech into flat galactic standard. "You did not eat." She glanced up, offering a weak smile. "Oh, Rak, I got absorbed in this research. I'll grab something later." But Rak saw how she gripped the console for support when she stood, how her skin had taken on an ashen quality. He'd observed her long enough to recognize the signs. The human was running on empty. Rak left the medical bay and scuttled toward the galley, his 6 legs carrying him swiftly through the corridors. The galley master, a scarred veteran named Grell, eyed the cub with suspicion. Meal period ended hours ago. The human requires sustenance. Rak stood his ground, mandibles clicking nervously. "She works through meals. Her biology demands frequent feeding," Grell snorted. "Soft creatures. Always hungry. We have no human food." Then something close to human food. High protein, energy dense. Rak had studied her requirements obsessively. She will collapse otherwise. And Captain Thrawn values her skills. The galley master considered this. The human had saved Thrawn's second-in-command from void rot. Finally, Grell turned to his stores and produced a wrapped packet of dried Zrak meat, tough, gamey, but nutritionally dense, and a container of fermented Grell root paste. Not ideal for human consumption, but it wouldn't poison her. Rak accepted the offering with a grateful bob of his head. He scuttled back through the ship, passing warriors who gave him curious looks. Cubs didn't concern themselves with the needs of aliens. But Rak had always been different. Too thoughtful, his clutch mother said. Too soft for a proper warrior. He reached Dr. Venn's quarters and carefully arranged the food outside her door. The human had shown him images of earth creatures called cats who brought gifts to their humans. The comparison amused him, though he'd never admit it aloud. Rak tapped the door panel with one chitinous claw and scuttled away, hiding around the corner to watch. The door hissed open. Dr. Venn emerged, looking exhausted, probably heading to the galley finally. She stopped when she saw the food. For a long moment, she simply stared at the wrapped packet and container sitting neatly on the floor. Then, to Rak's alarm, water began leaking from her eyes. He'd read about this. Human emotional response. Tears, but seeing it confused him. Had he done wrong? Was the offering insulting? Dr. Venn knelt slowly, picking up the food with shaking hands. She looked up and down the corridor, as if searching for the benefactor. Her voice came out thick, choked. "Thank you." She carried the food inside, through the gap before the door closed. Rock saw her sink onto her bunk, unwrapping the Zrak meat with trembling fingers. She took a bite, grimaced at the toughness but continued eating with desperate efficiency. Rock retreated to the cub's quarters, where his clutch mates wrestled and practiced combat forms. They didn't notice his absence, but Rock's mind churned with thoughts. Humans were strange. They cried when grateful. They forgot to maintain their own survival while caring for others. They were weak in body but somehow survived their death world through sheer stubbornness and pack bonding. Dr. Venn had no pack here. No one to watch her back, remind her to eat, ensure she survived. The Krath crew respected her skills but kept their distance. She was alien, too different, too fragile. But perhaps, Rock thought, that was what made humans truly formidable. Not their endurance or their death world origins. It was their ability to keep going even when alone, even when their pack was gone, even when their bodies screamed for rest and fuel. They just needed someone to notice when they faltered. The next morning, Rock was waiting in the corridor when Dr. Venn emerged for dawn cycle meal. She looked better, still tired but steadier. When she saw him, her face transformed with that curious human expression of happiness, lips pulling back to show blunt teeth. "It was you, wasn't it?" Rack clicked his mandibles in affirmation. "You did not eat. Your biology requires—" "Thank you, Rack." She knelt to his level, which made him uncomfortable but also strangely pleased. "That was very thoughtful." "Thoughtful," he repeated, tasting the word. His clutch mother used it as criticism. But from the human it sounded like praise. Dr. Venn stood, gesturing toward the galley. "Walk with me. I'll teach you more about human metabolism. And maybe," she smiled again, "maybe you can help me remember to eat on schedule." They walked together through the corridors. The massive predator cub and the small human scientist. Rock understood. Something his warrior trainers never taught. Strength wasn't just about claws and armor and the ability to crush enemies. Sometimes strength was noticing when someone needed help and caring enough to leave food outside their door.